Shalom, this is Nizama Shal Hamada Bar Yasharal on my channel Nizama the Hebrew Mystic Healer. Before I get started, I'd like to show a little love to my 3D kin, the 12 tribes of Israel, the Hebrew Israelites scattered to the four corners of this third dimensional earth plane of existence. Much love and shalom to you. I would also like to show some love to my cosmic kin, the primordial Nibiru star seeds, the Anunnaki star seeds, scattered to the 12 dimensions of this cosmic universal egg matrix. Much love and shalom to you as well. And as always, show some love and support to my viewers, especially those of you who are subscribed. If you're not yet subscribed, please do so now, and don't forget to hit the notification bell. Also, if you like this video, let me know by giving it a like. It helps. So today I'm going to talk about a couple different topics, and I did a poll recently about basically asking the majority of my subscribers what they would like to see me do videos on next in the coming weeks, and many people voted for me to do a video on the difference between the lower, the middle, and the higher self. The daemonic self, or the divine intelligence altogether between all of those realms. But also, a lot of people voted for me to do my part 2 of my hidden history, which I will get to, guys, especially now that I know you guys are wanting me to do that. But for today, I'm going to go over the difference between the lower, middle, and higher self, the demonic divine self as a whole. I'll go over what that is. And if you guys haven't seen my video on what is the daemon, lower self, or God self, definitely check out that video before you watch this one, because I don't want to spend too much time explaining what a daemon is versus the Christian belief in demon. So if you're unfamiliar with that terminology of what a daemon is and a demonic self, definitely check that out in my video. Another topic I want to cover today is I want to talk about why some people are drawn to different types of energy currents, different types of archetypes, and how you know a certain part of archetype within yourself, or a certain type of external archetype expression in the form of, a being, an ancestor, a guide, a god or goddess, an extra dimensional, an elemental, various different types of beings out there. How do you know when these types of beings would like to communicate with you? How do you know when they don't want to communicate with you? And what is all of this for? What does all of this mean? So I'm going to first talk about the whole difference between the lower, the middle, and the higher self. So from a Carl Jungian perspective, all is consciousness and all has archetypal expression. Every human being and this particular universe as a whole, really the multiverse, contains these types of archetypal expressions. So the lower self, the middle self, and the higher self are ways that we compartmentalize our consciousness to distinguish between basically our more primal nature, our nature that's more action-based, and our nature that's more thought-based. Also going into the more divine expression as well as a whole, which is really the sum of all of it. Because when you fully activate your Godhead, it means that you fully activated all 144 major minor chakra points, that you remember who you are, you have access to your memories, you have access to your cosmic records, and you've awakened them, you've unlocked it, so to speak. Right? You've unlocked that cosmic DNA, so you are awakened to your God self as a result. So you are no longer channeling your higher self or repressing your lower self, or projecting out your middle self. You simply are all of this as one totality, as one unified being. So the lower self, essentially, you're dealing with the lower chakra points. So more familiar chakra points would be the root chakra and the sacral chakra, but this also goes into the Earth Star chakra, and it also goes into other minor chakras on the sides of the Earth Star chakra. And then it also goes into more of the equiplothic chakra points as well. Now, when you're dealing with the middle self, you're dealing with the heart chakra and the solar plexus chakra primarily. This is because this is the part of the chakra that deals with your will and the expression of your lower and higher emotions at a meeting point, and your lower and higher vibrations and your lower and higher thoughts, and all of that is at this center point. And when most people think they are talking to their higher self, they're actually usually talking to their middle self. And they'll feel it pull from within their solar plexus or within their heart chakra. They'll just feel like this knowing or this intuitive feeling. They can feel if something is good for them or something is bad for them. That's actually the middle self, not the higher self. The higher self is actually located in the soul star chakra, where the oversoul vortex region is. But it also extends down to the crown, because when you activate your crown chakra, you really begin that whole point of activating that. Now, when you get to the daemonic aspect, when you first start activating your Godhead, you will start by activating all of the upper and lower chakras. But when you're fully awakened, you have all of them activated, and that's when you can really start accessing your daemon. Now, there's a lot of meditations to access your daemon, or the sum of all of this, but honestly, a lot of it is more of thought form based and meditations, because it comes with a certain point of work. It comes with a certain point of activation and awakening. And usually when people are ready to deal with their demonic self, they've done a lot of shadow work, and they've usually worked through a lot of chakra points before they get to that. Now, this is because the daemonic self really resides primarily within the unconscious, which is 90% of our consciousness, right? Our conscious mind is 10%. Our middle self is also where our conscious mind exists as well. So I hope I'm not confusing anybody with these different explanations and breakdowns. But the goal is, when we want to simply make a decision, when we want guidance from within, we want to have our God self earthed down within us. So we're not just channeling like it's something outside of us. We want our lower self in alignment with our God self, and we want our middle self acting out the balance between the two. That's the goal. To fully awaken the God self is to become your own God, essentially. And a lot of people hear that and they're like, oh, that's really satanic and all of this, but really what this is it's just why we're here. We're supposed to ascend. We're supposed to remember who we are. We're supposed to return to what that core expression of our soul blueprint. So it's nothing evil and it's nothing woo-woo. It just is. That's the point of it all. That's what awakening is. That's why even when you see examples in the text of, Bodhis or Buddhas, they, in their awakening process, they start recalling. An example would be Siddhartha Gautama. He recalled all of his past lives in his awakening process. That shows that that's part of that. It's an activation. It's a remembering. It's a recalling. So tying this in with the whole dealing with archetypal energies, either internally or externally, this is really for the purpose. It's kind of like, look at it as Build-A-Bear. You're building yourself how you want to be. You are developing your own character. So you do have to, in my opinion, you should really start within like your lower self first and really work through and do emotional healing. Because if you don't understand your darkest part, so you don't understand your hidden parts, or the parts of you that need healing, the parts of you that are repressed, the parts of you that have, trauma existing there, if you don't deal with that first, you're not you're not really going to be able to look at yourself honestly and really know who you are. If you're ignoring your darker parts or your lower nature, then you don't know who you are. And you're essentially projecting out something that you're not, or someone that you're not. Mostly someone you want to be. So it's very important that when you're trying to awaken and activate, that you really do the work within and you really face yourself and who you really are, not who you want people to see, not who you want to be, but who you are. So once you are able to integrate and heal those aspects within you, now you can start transforming. You can start really adapting. You do high alchemical processes. It's a transfiguration, it's a transmutation, it's a transformation where you start transforming yourself into who you want to be as a Godhead. Do you want to be just? Do you want to be merciful? Do you want to be powerful? Do you want to be able to control elements? Do you want to be able to walk between worlds? Do you want to be able to read minds or move objects? Do you want to be able to, be a psychopomp where you're guiding beings, to and fro, or, maybe a guardian of the dead, or do you want to watch over certain, energetic currents or certain, stellar gateways? And this may sound a little out there, guys, but really, we have, as sovereign beings, we need to take ownership of our primordial spark, of our black flames. We have to really develop ourselves and who we want to be and not become passive passengers in our own existence. Because Source is having an experience through us. And as unique reflections of, consciousness as a whole, it's up to us to really define who we are. So the whole point in working with different archetypes or different energy currents is really for the purpose of developing that within ourselves. So people will typically be drawn to energy currents that they either have within themselves that they haven't fully embodied, or that they want to embody, but there'll be some sort of energetic draw. So like, for example, when you want to work with a specific archetype, right? It doesn't even have to be a quote unquote deity. It doesn't even have to be a specific being with a specific name, but let's say you want to work with, for example, the Magician Archetype, right? The Magician Archetype within yourself, if you're connecting to that, then you can express that on the external. So ways of doing that would be, for example, trying to actually do alchemical stuff externally and internally within yourself through ritualistic means, through meditation, through using tools, and especially doing like affirmations. I am the magician. I am the alchemist. I transform my reality. I manifest according to my will. So you take ownership of these aspects. And you don't just declare them as something that you want to happen. You declare it as though it already is. I am statements are the most powerful affirmations you can do, because you're really surpassing all illusions of time. You're speaking to the eternal moment. So how do you know a certain, let's move on to like beings that maybe have a more identified expression of these archetypes. Let's talk about specific beings. How do you know? First of all, how do you know if an ancestor wants to work with you? I feel like that's actually where we should start when we're working with, any being, is really start with our own bloodline, our own ancestors, our own, self, our own, higher self. And in working with ancestors, they will usually come to you in a dream. You may feel their presence. You may smell, like if it's an ancestor you may smell their perfume. Something may happen where you may see something like, let's say your grandmother taught you how to make apple pies and all of a sudden you smell apple pie. Or you may see a picture of like a grandma and a little girl making apple pie, and then it's like all of a sudden you feel them there. You feel that ancestor there. Maybe, depending on the level of your clair activation, you might even be able to sense your ancestor. Let's say you're doing an ancestor offering on an altar. You may be able to sense your ancestor's energy signature enter the room, right? Or if you're shamanically journeying, they may come and they may tell you things that need healing within the bloodline. So you know where to start working on that healing process within your ancestral bloodline, within your cosmic tree. So our ancestors are both within us, and they exist as basically fingerprints of energy outside of us as well. So there's very little distinction between ancestors, past lives, and us, as I've said in other videos. So when an ancestor wants to deal with you, they'll make it known. It'll be obvious. And you don't have to work with very specific ancestors. You can keep it general. I go over a lot of this on my Patreon too. Specific ways of accessing ancestors, doing ancestor altars, shamanic journeying, things like that. Now, how do you know if let's say a deity wants to work with you, right? That particular archetypal expression, or an extra dimensional, or an elemental. Well, they will make themselves known, especially if it is a familiar, and it can even be an egregore expression, where it's a thought form deity created by collective consciousness or certain cultures. It doesn't really matter, because really you're connecting with this archetype. You're acknowledging it as an aspect of the collective consciousness, as, the primordial, father and mother occurrence within the source consciousness, right? And really you're recognizing this type of archetype within yourself. So in honoring the external expressions of the divine, you also honor those internal expressions of the divine within you. And a lot of times you will be drawn to beings that have character traits that you really want within yourself. And so instead of looking at it as I'm going to worship this being, look at it as I'm going to learn from this being. This being is going to be my teacher. And eventually I'm going to develop this within myself. I'm going to integrate it. It's like Build-A-Bear. I'm going to build myself the way I want to be as a sovereign expression. So if a deity or a being wants to work with you, they will make it known. And especially if you're familiar with how they communicate. Like, let's say if it's a fae and they want to work with you, they may, leave a small gift, on your porch or in your garden. They may playfully move something or borrow something and then bring it back, and damn well you didn't leave it in that same place, but it's somewhere else, especially if they bring a gift along with it. And you can choose whether you want to work with them at that point in time. Sometimes you may hear giggling, or you may see a light orb, or you may even see like an outline or a veiled, figure. And, there's different types of fae. Okay, just using the fae as an example. If it is a dragon, it's been my experience with dragons that they really like to connect during meditation, and that they will actually show their form. They will project their form through your mind's eye. And a lot of times you will actually see them almost like behind a dimensional curtain, where you'll see them in whatever realm they're in, and they'll talk to you, usually through meditation, or they might enter the space as well. Now let's say you want to deal with angels. A lot of times, like, angels will usually communicate they'll usually communicate through ritual, they'll communicate through numbers, and sometimes they will communicate through dreams and visions as well. Gods and goddesses, they usually will communicate by showing certain animals, and totems communicate this way too, and animal guides, by the way. So it's always good to kind of look at, the whole picture. And because if you start seeing, let's say that you're wanting to work with, for example, I'll just give one that I'm pretty familiar with. Okay, let's just say you want to work with like Hecate, with that expression of the primordial mother, okay? And let's say that you're not a very clairvoyant or clairaudio person, okay? Because not everyone is. Not everyone has that activated within themselves. Everyone's at different points. And some people have different gifts in other areas that other people don't have, and vice versa. Everyone's got gifts in somewhere. But basically, I digress. let's say you're not a clairvoyant or clairaudient person, but you're curious to know if that particular deity wants to work with you. Well, are you seeing dogs? Are you seeing snakes? Are you seeing keys? Are you seeing the number 3 a lot or the number 13 a lot? Are you getting a sense that just something is going well after you're doing a ritual or an offering, right? Are you running into information or people that are giving you, certain confirmations? These are all ways that show that that particular deity wants to work with you, even if you're not able to talk with them directly or to see them. And you can also do a guided meditation to connect with beings as well to find out. It's my motto that you should find out if a being wants to work with you and not just be presumptuous about it and just be like, well, I'm going to deal with so-and-so. Find out from them. Do they want to work with you? Is that archetype within you aligned to them? Is it something that you're really ready for? Is it something you're serious about? Don't be presumptuous. Ask them if they want to work with you. Don't just assume because you're throwing cookies at them, or crossroad cakes that they want to work with you. Ask them what they like. Ask them what they want. Don't just, come to them with what you want and how you want them to work with you and what character traits you want to get out of them and what help you want to get out of them, right? With any being, always make sure, just like with any relationship, friendship, family, husband, wife, partner, whatever, think about what you bring into the table as an equal exchange. You'll know when an energy current wants to be with you, wants to work with you, wants to assist you. And like I said, you can work with several different energy currents and just, adopt that within yourself. Build yourself up, activate yourself. Do shadow work. Do ancestral healing. Do shamanic journeying. Do self-guided meditations, or even, there's even guided meditations online. I teach a lot of it on Patreon too, Activate your own chakra points. Do meditations. Grow your own black flame. If you're trying to increase your spiritual gifts, right, and abilities. You want to change your character. If you're trying to lose weight, specifically do things that are gonna, that are gonna help you lose weight. Be more active. Change your food. Surround yourself with people that are inspiring, right? Do rituals that are set up and designed for that. Put your effort in these places. You want to develop your character. Do you want to be more charitable? Go out, volunteer, feed the homeless, work at an animal shelter. Practice charitable sacrifices and offerings within your life. Be willing to give things up for the sake of someone else. Develop that within yourself. We have the keys. We have the ability within ourselves to become the beings that we want to be. We can't just wait on some external savior or some external force to save us from ourselves or, to wipe the slate clean. We have to do that on our own. A lot of religions teach us to always be waiting on some kind of external savior or always to come to some external force. It doesn't mean we can't help each other out. It doesn't mean that we can't ask for help. That's not what I mean. It doesn't mean that we can't go for guidance or support for, to our spiritual teams that we work with, that we're connected to. But at the end of the day, we really need to be able to do this ourselves. And something else I wanted to add, another reason why a being or an energy current may not want to work with you is maybe you're from a feuding energy current or a feuding bloodline. A lot of people don't understand that DNA is spiritual. It's not just physical. You don't just incarnate in these random ass places that have nothing to do with your bloodline. There's very little separation between ourselves and our ancestors, and there's very little separation between our DNA at this level and our DNA at the higher level. Only difference being is that we can't cram all of ourselves in these little avatar bodies. And so we choose avatar bodies that are as compatible as possible, but they're still within the same bloodline. There's still lower expressions of what's existing in higher realms and lower realms, for that matter. So we are multidimensional beings. And not all multidimensional beings are really going to click. Not all of them are going to get along. Let me just use an example in 3D terms, okay? If you are somebody whose ancestors was killed and oppressed using a certain religious system, it's probably not a good idea for you to use that religious system for your spiritual path. You're going to want to heal that. You're going to want to heal that. You may have ancestors in there that were brainwashed or really put into Stockholm Syndrome from those belief systems. You want to address that and try to heal that within your ancestry. But it's not going to be in your best interest. It's not going to be in your highest good or your ancestors' highest good for you to be pursuing that, right? If you're from, for example, an East Asian culture, it doesn't really make sense for you to be necessarily working with beings or pantheons that are existing from a culture that dominated you, right? So if you're from a certain bloodline and you know that your ancestors dealt with certain beings, and you have that within your ancestry, then that's probably the currents or the types of archetypes you might want to work with, because all of these archetypes really exist within, various pantheons. They're just the same archetypes over and over and over again, but that are appearing as egregoric powers over specific bloodlines and totemic as well. And so it's always better to deal with your own totems, your own ancestral powers, your own ancestors, because they have your best interest in mind. Just because a being is powerful, just because a being is primordial, or just because a being is extra dimensional or angelic or whatever, doesn't mean that they give a shit about you. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily for your highest good. The gods play favorites. Let me just be frank. So if you're having a problem accessing certain energy currents, that's another question to ask yourself. And you have to be careful who you make pacts with. Know who you're dealing with. Get to know energy, get to know archetypes, get to know beings. Don't just, look at somebody's YouTube video where I'm working with so-and-so and they help me and then just dive in. Well, maybe that works for that person because maybe their ancestors made pacts with that being. Do you understand what I mean? And so not everybody is really going to get the same assistance as somebody else. It depends on their unique cosmic expression, and everybody's different. So you really have to know within yourself what you need, what you're drawn to. And as I said, don't make assumptions. If you're interested in getting to know an energy current, getting to know a being before you work with it, it's just like a friendship. You don't divulge all your secrets. You don't let strangers into your home if you don't know them. You get to know somebody. It's the same thing. Just because somebody is from another dimension, doesn't mean that you handle it like, laissez-faire. Or just assume that because they are a god, or they are an angel, or they are a daemonic intelligence, or they are an elemental, or they are an extra dimensional. Don't assume that just because they're from a higher dimension than you, that they have your best interest in mind. Don't make that mistake, please. Find out what they want. Always make sure that every energy you're working with, every person you're surrounding yourself with, every choice you're making is for the highest good. and your highest good, and for the highest good of your cosmic tree and your awakening process. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, definitely give it a like. I know I probably seemed like I was going on a little bit of a rant, but I have a method to my madness, and I have future videos that I want to bring out that are all going to correlate with a lot of the videos I've been putting out recently. So as always, I just want to quickly bring up that I am an Akashic record reader. So if anyone is interested in knowing their pre-universal origin, you know, if you have one, other incarnations, your first universal incarnation, different placements. Also, I'm very close to having a draconic astrological starseed chart as an available service. I'm very close to that, guys. Give me another couple weeks and I will have it up and running. I do have it available in my highest tier on Patreon as part of joining that membership subscription. So definitely check that out. But check out Patreon too, guys. I teach all different types of techniques, advanced shadow work, light Merkaba activation, working with your higher self, activating your daemon, working with ancestors, working with soul family, reconnecting with soul family, working with totems, working with patron and matron deities, activating major and minor chakra points, learning how to shield, learning how to cloak, learning how to center. So these are just some of the services I offer. Also, learning how to access your past lives, activate your cosmic tree. These are techniques that you can use your whole life. These are techniques that empower you. These are tools for your own sovereign growth and expression. So thank you for tuning in. Until next time, guys, take care and shalom.